Hi and hello everyone. Welcome back. Through this lecture, let's take a bird's eye view, like a total overall view of what project management is. Project management is a very huge, vast process, and if we start digging into each topic, we can go on and on. So, firstly, we'll go through all the important project management terms that will help us better our understanding of the subject. We will keep on using these lexicon of terms over and over through our lectures. We will have to use them because they are relevant in our examination. Projects, deliverables, requirements, services, results. The list goes on and on. It's very vast. So what we can do to broaden this, at first we define the important key terms, right? So which are important for the exam, because this complete lecture is focused towards the exam. Let us focus the terms which are important for the exam, like life cycle, what are phases, what are phase gates, what are processes, process groups, knowledge areas, everything that is important for the exam. Let us first touch upon. So basically all the important terms from PMBOK guide, let us touch upon so that first we will be easy with the exam. So when we get to each of the topics, as we keep on learning, instead of defining each and every term, we will have a deeper understanding of what those terms are, what those areas are. So, for example, business value is a very important term, which we will also learn in this section, right? So we don't have to separately define what a business value is, right? So defining project management. This is a very, very broad statement again, but I'll try to make justice to it in this very section. I keep telling this over and over. Project management is a subject that cannot be grouped or gathered in a single document or a single book. It's a huge process and it keeps on evolving with time. So, if you all can see, I have omitted the word project from the second statement here, the defining project management. And here I have mentioned that defining management. I have written here defining management instead of defining project management because the project management is just one of the branches of the management. So instead of just project management, we have program management, we have operational management, we have portfolio management, right? So many things are available. So the list doesn't just end there. We have benefits management, we have organizational project management. So many types of managements are there. So we will learn about all these umbrella terms in this of the lecture, right? And then we will move on to project life cycle, one of the most important section in the course. We all know by now that there are 49 processes. If you don't know, I have already been repeating this over and over. 49 processes. We have to learn all these by heart to pass our PMP exam. The sixth edition of Timbok Guide presents this in a very beautiful manner. All these 49 processes are divided in a very orderly manner. They are categorized within this project life cycle. How a set of processes must be followed in each phase of the project. What a phase actually looks like. What are the review mechanisms at the end of each project or each project phase, right? So they're actually called phase gates, by the way. So product life cycle is different from project life cycle. All these things we will learn, and then we will talk about the processes themselves. Some nice overview of the processes will be given. So again, all the 49 processes cannot be covered in this particular class today, but don't worry, they will all be covered in this course. These 49 processes, as I already mentioned, are divided into process groups and also are divided into knowledge areas. So in this section, we'll learn about what these groups are, how they are defined, how the processes are actually allocated there, and a brief overview of the knowledge areas versus the process groups, something like that, right? So, and then finally, we will end today's session by defining the role of a project manager. To put things very, very bluntly, the main role of a project manager is to get the things done, to get things moving. So in this section, let us understand about what skills and competence one should have to move the work ahead. So in today's work environment, even the CEOs have open cabins, right? So everybody is open and everybody is approachable. But does that mean that everybody on the office floor is capable to take all the decisions about the project? No, right? So the power is an important advantage that the project manager has. So we will understand how to acquire this power, how to build those strategies, and how to develop these leadership skills and all. So we will learn all these points, and then finally we'll call it a day. All right. Hope we are clear. Let's move. Project management terms. So let's first of all try and understand what the term project refers to. So we have used this term project enough in our presentation so far, and we are going to use this a lot of times again, later. So what is a project? So a project could be anything that is creating a value. We have learned in the PMBOK terms earlier that project is a temporary endeavor. So which has a fixed start date and fixed end date. So here is another definition that a project could be anything that is creating a value. We have all been working on projects since the beginning. Again, I keep on repeating this, starting from the invention of the wheel and to the launching of the rocket to the Mars. We have a lot of projects. The Taj Mahal is a project. Writing a book is a project. Creating a mobile phone app is a project. Everything around us was a project once. So I used the word was because it has a project start date and it has a project end date. After the end date, the product or the result or the service that is coming out of this result is going to the result of that project, a temporary endeavor. As I said, Taj Mahal was a project while it was being built. But once the building is erect, it is known as a product. It's not a project anymore. So what do we learn here? We call an activity a project only if it has a definite start and a definite end result to it. So the life of that end result could be longer than the project itself. So if we quote another example here, a bridge that we build could last for, let's say, 100 years, 150 years. But we cannot say that the project duration is going to be 150 years. So the key difference between the project and the product is that the product can have a longer life than a project. Product, service, or result. And does only the product qualify as output for the project? No. A result of a project could be in the form of a product, in the form of a service, or in the form of a result. So all three possibilities are there. Not all projects just produce tangible products. There, the service industry is also a project, and then some result. When we say result, it's like a certification. So a mobile phone is a product, right? And Amazon delivery system, if you call it, that is a service. And getting the PMP certification while you are taking this endeavor, you will be getting a certification at the end of a project. So even this can be called as a project. Sometimes there is just one of the product, service, or a result as an outcome. And sometimes it could be a mixture of two or more of these things. So for example, the software you use to code or to model something has customer maintenance service also. Right? Whenever we have a problem with the software, there is also a customer service that we rely upon. So it has both tangible product and also a service associated with the project. Moving on, initiating factors of a project. What happens here? So we understood so far that a project could be product, service, or a result. So now, why would anyone undertake a project? So what is the driving reason? What impetus is behind project? So of course, the main important motive is always going to be to earn money with the value that the project generates. But given the benefits, what else drives an organization to start a new product or a service or a result? So the PMI explains that there are four key driving factors to start a project. So first thing is going to be regulatory guidelines. Second thing is going to be a request from a customer. Thirdly, to improve the current state of a product or a process or also the result. And finally, to create or generate a new product, the organization takes a project. Business value. What happens during a project? During a project, the state of the organization changes, right? So it moves from the current state to a future state. For example, the current state is here and then it moves to a future state with added business value. So let me explain much in depth here. When a project is being handled by an organization, what happens is that it keeps on adding a lot of resources to itself. So currently the organization has, let's say, one building. At the end of the project, the organization will have a second building to accommodate all the machinery that it has procured, the additional resources that it has hired, right? So after the project is ending, there are two buildings for this office, right? So the total business value has increased after the project is executed. So to put it in project management terms, the knowledge level of the resource is also going to get increased, right? So the colleagues or the stakeholders who are working for the project, before the project and after the project, they will learn something through this project in one or other way. So even the intellectual property is also going to increase its value for the total project organization. So again, as I said, some fixed capital expenditure is also invested, which will add up like a machinery, a new set of tools. New software might be installed, an upgraded software. Maybe even, as I told you, a new building can also be constructed for the project. So in this process, the organization is adding a lot of values to itself. So from the beginning of the project to end of the project, the value of the business is increased, and hence it is called a future state of the project, right? So current state of the project, future state of the project, these are all the terms, right? When I keep stressing them out, you have to grasp them, grab them. It is very difficult to just paste them all over the screen. It is also not so important for you to learn it by heart, but just keep them in the back of the mind. The terminology that I use, I always try to stick back to the PMBOK terms. So now the PMBOK guide says that the projects enable business value creation. What does it mean? So when the organization is finished with the project, it is going to receive the benefits back in the form of a tangible values and intangible values. When we say tangible, I think you all know what tangible means. It could be something we can touch, something we can feel, like monetary benefits, the money. The stock value of the company is going to increase. That is also a tangible benefits. And as I mentioned before, new machines or new tools that are purchased by the company. All these are tangible values. And intangible benefits could be something like a brand value. Mercedes Benz is a brand. Facebook is a brand. You know, all this reputation of the company will also be increased. With that said, I think we can end this section and then we can move to defining what is a project management. So here we are in the next section, defining management. So what we will do here, we will understand about different management types, different management styles, etc. So what we will do, we will cover this topic again in 4 different steps. First thing is, why is project management important? So in this step, we are going to learn the importance of the project management. Second part, we will understand what projects, programs, and portfolios mean. So here in this part, we will be understanding the differences between the projects, programs, and the portfolio. And then we will move on to understand what is operations management. So it's quite different from handling the projects or programs or portfolios. We will learn in that session about this. And finally, what do we mean by operations and project management? So in this section, as you can see, we will cover about all the different types of management that exists. I have not covered other terms that are not important for the PMP exam, like for example, the benefits management. So it actually talks about what benefits that we are going to get. It will be decided, even before the project starts, at the very beginning, right? At the strategy stage, where the stakeholders at the lower level are not involved. This is usually done in the boardroom at the business level, right? So this management also does exist, and that is not important for the PMP exam for now. So just be aware that it exists. You'll not get any questions on this. So, okay, the first topic, the importance of project management. As you can see right here, I intended to create a broad overview where we will understand the differences between what happens to a project that has project management and what happens to the project that doesn't have a project management way of working. So I have considered an organization, an example organization. It could be anything. So let's see how it goes. So with project management, without project management, firstly, it meets the objectives, and secondly, it misses the deadlines. So what happens here is that the project management ensures that all the project objectives are met. So if the project does not have project management, there is a high risk that so many deadlines are going to be missed because there is no proper review mechanism, something like this. Moving on, the project management makes the results and the outcome of the project quite predictable. So that is the reason we will have a lot of predictability when the project is handled with project management principles, and when it is handled without the project management principles, it will have uncontrolled project expansion. Moving on, so here you can see that without the project management, the costs are always overshot. So we will not be able to use the resources to their optimum level. When I say resources, it could be man, machine, method, money, everything. Everything is overused, or there are so many leakages for the costs. So as a result of that, there'll be so many cost overruns if you don't have project management in your organization. Moving on, the project management is going to ensure that there are no backlogs left at the end of the project. So we will learn that at the closing stage of a project, the closing cannot be done if there are backlog tasks. So what are backlogs? Backlog can be any task that is pending to do. So backlogs, I think we have learned in the previous class that backlogs are something important, but they are not urgent, but they are to be finished before the project ends, right? So if there is no project management that is reviewing whether there are backlogs or not, the backlogs are going to be left at the end of the project, right? So there are so many deliverables which are not met, so it could be serious. So when we have project management, what happens is we resolve all the problems within the time. Effective change management, right? So any change that is going to pop up during the process are very well managed with the project management. So if we don't have project management, we all know what is going to happen. Moving on, identifying the terminal projects. Yeah, this is a very important point, that if in case the project is not performing well, so or let's say the project is not giving out the values as per our expectations, so such projects are terminated, because it is better to terminate such projects at the beginning of the project. So instead of wasting a lot of time, lots of energy, so many resources, and then closing the project, it is better that we identify that the project is not going to succeed at the end of the project. We will understand it better with the help of the project management, right? So without project management, there is no such vision, or such scope cannot be identified at the beginning of the project. So we will be running in losses if we don't have project management in place. Also, a very important value, that the brand value of the company might not be as good if you don't have the project management, because with the so many quality issues coming up after the project, with so many issues not managed well within time, the reputation of the project or the organization, not just the project, but the organization also goes down if the project is not handled in a effective way. So brand recognition is one of the benefits that we get when we apply the project management to the project. Finally, the customer and the stakeholders. I think this goes without saying that all the stakeholders and the customers are very satisfied if we do the process in a systematic way, and that systematic way is easily achieved with the help of the project management. The next, the project life cycle. Let's see what happens here. So let's try and understand the life cycle. We will first learn what life cycle is in terms of project management, and then we will understand the differences between the project and the development cycle. What is a project life cycle? What is a development life cycle? What is the basic differences we will learn? What do we mean by phases? What is a project phase? We will understand. And then finally, we'll close the topic with understanding of phase gates. So if we understand the term, the project manager, or in terms of Timbok guide, the project lifecycle typically involves 4 steps. So the start or initiation step, the organizing or planning step, the execution, and then finally the closing step. So as you can see in this image, a development cycle could just be a part of one of the phase. You can see here the project life cycle has four steps: the start, organize step, execute step, and close step. And they can be divided into different phases, right? So the phase need not be linked to the first start. That is why you can see they are not aligned with the blocks here, just for the sake of understanding. So we have phases that are different from the steps of a life cycle, and then in each phase, and by the way, just because I have put three phases here, that doesn't mean they are lesser in number than the steps. They're actually more in number than the steps here. So just don't confuse yourself. So what happens here is the development cycle could just be one of the phases of the project life cycle. And you can see that again, there are four steps for this life cycle. So within this just one phase, we can again further have four different steps in the development life cycle. So now typically the project management is handled in a predictive and adaptive way. But the development life cycle is handled in all the five different ways. So don't worry, these terms may be quite new to you. So for the exact definition of all these terms, I recommend you to please go through the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. 6th edition is going to be your Bible for passing PMP exam. But as far as I remember, let me try to explain these things to you. Predictive life cycle is usually a traditional method where the scope, time, cost, they're all defined at a very early phase of the project. And when we say talk about cycle, iterative cycle is a agile method. So the time and the cost, they are changed as the project moves forward. But the scope is predefined, right? So when we say scope, time, cost, scope is predefined, but the time and cost part are changed as the project moves forward. When we say incremental can be both agile and traditional, and this can be called as a progressive iteration, right? So as the functions keep getting added at every iteration, the project moves forward. Adaptive life cycle. What is an adaptive life cycle? This is also an agile process, and they are usually change driven. The term itself, you can learn that adaptive, it's driven by change. Whenever a change comes, the project adapts itself. So finally, the hybrid life cycle, as the name itself indicates, it could be combination of any two processes or three processes or all the four processes. So hybrid type of life cycle. Okay, moving on. The project phases can be named, right? So what name can be given? It can be named as phase one, phase two, or phase three, as you can see here. This is just an example. They can also be named as phase A, phase B, phase C, or some cool names are also given. All this naming is not important. These are not standard as per the PMBOK guide. They're all given as per the organization's rules, or sometimes even linked to the project. So what they actually mean is how the work is divided. So as you can see here, it can be called as development life cycle phase also. For now, I have mentioned it as phase one, but in some organization, they may choose to call it as development life cycle phase. Okay, so here I have shown the list of tasks that could be targeted. If we choose the development cycle, you can just have a look at it. So in phase one, what could be happening? Phase two, what could be happening? Moving on, phase gates. Phase gates are nothing but the review mechanism, right? So that we are putting some review mechanisms to validate whether a phase is actually achieved or not. So phase gates, this is usually a typical symbol of a phase gate. So for phase one, we have gate one. For phase two, we have gate two. And then phase three, we have a gate three. So to validate or to say the phase one is cleared, what type of review is done, that is understood here in gate one, and so on and so forth. Here we are on the overview of the processes. Let's quickly see what we have here. I think I have already briefed you a lot about this, so I'll try to go through it very quickly. We have a total 49 processes in total. I keep repeating it. And then they are divided into process groups and different knowledge areas. Let's quickly have a look at the table. Again, here we have the table. As you can see, the knowledge areas, we have 10 knowledge areas in the first column. And then we have 5 different process groups in this row, or 5 different columns. And all the 49 processes are linked here. So I keep repeating it because it's very, very important in terms of the exam. You have to learn all these processes by heart. When somebody asks you in sleep which process group the plan schedule management belongs to, you have to tell that it belongs to the planning process group and that it belongs to the project schedule management. Just an example. So it is very important in the exam point of view that all these processes to be remembered by heart. I repeated that. Okay, moving on. Role of a project manager. In this lesson, we'll understand what is the scope of influence of a project manager, what skills are required by him, and what are the differences between a leader and a manager, and how to perform the integration. So the project manager can influence or get influenced by the people in 5 different stages. You can see the project, organization, industry, profession, and other disciplines. These are the 5 stages where a project manager can influence somebody or can get influenced by somebody. This drawing is a typical representation from the PMBOK guide, 6th edition again. So you can see how important the 6th edition is for our exam. So let's quickly go one by one. First thing, obviously, within the project manager where he has the maximum power, he can influence and get influenced. Second thing is within the organization where using the responsibilities he has, he can request or even demand the resources at the company level. At the industry level influence, right? So where he can interact with the other organizations other than just our own organization, like customers or vendors, maybe even the competitors sometimes, during inter-organizational meetings. So he can also influence people within that industry, and he can interact with the people and influence across his profession because he's a PMP, or even if he's not a PMP, all the project managers meet in groups and then share their ideas. So he can also influence there as a project management professional and also get influenced. And finally, the other disciplines also, like for example, let's say you are from a IT project manager, you can go and interact with a construction project manager, right? So project management can have a shared principles, shared understandings of how good things are done. So if a best practice is done in construction company, this IT project manager can go and learn from him, get influenced by him, or he can share his experience about how he has managed the project well. Here we can see the required skills by a project manager, right? So what skills that we need? The project manager should be able to study the people's behavior and motivations. So the quality of a leader could be being optimistic, being building the trust, good communication skills, being empathetic, being visionary. All these terms are from PMBOK, but they are not important for the exam. So all the qualities we have learned, and then finally the politics, power, and getting things done. The politics here exactly means what you're thinking. Politics is bad, I know, but you are in such a role that if you are not playing the office politics, you will be dragged by somebody else to play the politics. So you cannot avoid it. So PMBOK guide and PMI itself tells that you are to play politics, and politics doesn't have to be taken as quite negative. The PMI has defined politics as the ability to influence, ability to negotiate, and have autonomy and power over others. It sounds like a don, right? I know. Okay, moving on. Technical project management skills. So what does it mean? The technical project management skills, they require you to demonstrate on the topics like success of the project, the scheduling, the financial reports, creating the issue log. All these things come under technical project management skills. So as a project manager, we need to make time for planning and prioritizing the tasks. Moving on. Okay, what do we have here? We have the strategic and business management skills. Having the strategic and business management skills means having the ability to explain the business aspects of the project, and maximizing the business value using multiple strategies, right? So you have to use a lot of strategies and then maximize the value that the business that is going to get. Moving on, we have, what do we have here? We can find the key differences between leadership and management. So these two words are not the same. Leader cannot be the manager, and manager cannot be the leader. The main distinction is in the working style. So what happens is, and also before we go to the details of what a manager and leader is, one is not above the other. So leader is not bigger than manager, or manager is not bigger than the leader. These terms here actually talk about the behavior of a person who is in that role. So managerial activities or leadership activities, they can both be performed by a single person, right? So a person cannot be bigger than himself. So the word management is more about giving directions to a person to get the things moving, and the word leadership here involves working with others, guiding them to get the work done. These are the typical terms. Moving on, let us see what are different types of leadership styles we have. So first style is laissez-faire. It actually means somebody who allows the team to take their own decisions, right? So that is one of the leadership style. Next is the transactional leader. He's somebody who is always rewarding for the work done. Give me something and take the appreciation. That kind of leadership is a transactional leader. Servant leader, the most important leadership style, which always comes into an example. I cannot stress enough about this. Please learn about servant leader before you sit in the PMP exam. Very important leadership style. And what does it mean? This type of leadership demonstrates commitment to serve and put other people first. So he is somebody who is always focused to make other people work easier by providing them with all the resources, and he maintains always good relationships with everybody on the team. So when a question comes, what type of leadership skill this is, you have to be able to identify that it is a servant leadership style. Okay, so it's very rare that you do not get a question without this type of leadership style. So bottom line, very, very important leadership style. Please have a look at it before you go into the exam. Moving on, the next kind is somebody who is always encouraging, transformational, somebody who is quite motivating and inspiring type. The next style is one who is always energetic. He's always energetic. He's very self-confident. People always look at him. He's always holding, like stronger convictions. That type. And finally, the type who's, kind of combination of transactional. He's some part transactional and some part transformational and some part charismatic. So he has the qualities which are mixed. So he's considered as a interactive type of leader. So these are some personality attributes of the leader. Again, you don't have to memorize them. Just take a feel of them. What personalities does a leader has? We are focusing on the leadership and not the management, because the PMBOK guide stresses so much on the leadership, right? So it wants everybody to move from management style to leadership style of leading a team. So give a quick read. What do we have here? The leadership should have authentic personality. He should be courteous. He should be creative, cultural, emotional. He should be intellectual. Managerial is also one of the quality at some times, because we cannot completely disregard this. And as I told, he must be political. Don't take this in a negative sense. A leader must be political. He has to be service oriented, social, and of course systemic. The reason I have to include these textbook terms here is just so that you don't miss the attributes that are given. They might come in handy in the exam. They might not ask you directly whether your leader is creative or not, right? So just keep these things in the back of your mind. Integration. Integration is all about linking the processes, right? So knowledge and people integrated to achieve the organizational strategic objectives with the help of the project objectives. So the process level, as we all know, we have 49 processes, again and again repeated. These processes, are sometimes done independent to one another, and sometimes they are clubbed together, like 2 processes are clubbed, 3 processes are clubbed. So this kind of integration is talked about, and that is called the project or process level integration. What do we have next? Cognitive level integration. We all know cognitive means the knowledge. So it's all about integration of knowledge areas, right? So the project manager applies his experience, all his insights, and the business management skills, to combine the common activities across the knowledge areas. We have 10 knowledge areas. So he uses his skills to combine and integrate them, and finally to achieve the final results. Moving on, context level. Okay, so context is something larger than the project. So what happens here in an organization where multiple projects are running, and also some historic projects are there, some new projects keep coming, or might even be some 4 or 5 projects are running in parallel. So the problems that are faced within a single project, they could also have occurred in other project, which the stakeholders from this first project are not aware of. So in one project they are handled very well, and the other project, the people from the other project don't even know that this kind of solution is already being solved there. So the project manager, what he does, he integrates such common problems, right? He always keeps interacting with the other project managers, and then he discusses these kind of problems, like, look, hey, I had a problem and I solved it this way. So, or he asks, do you have such problem in your project too, right? So if they already have a solution, we can implement it easily, right? So we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So it's all about that. So at the context level, integration actually benefits a lot at the organization level. Okay, integration and complexity. Complexity, the definition itself means complexity is something which is difficult to manage. So the project manager is going to identify the complexities of the project, and he tries to integrate them by identifying those key areas which could make them easier to manage. Let's understand the terms projects, programs, and portfolios. What do we have here? Let's say we have an organization, and what different types of projects can be available here. So what projects can you think of? Now, don't say that project or a program or portfolio. Let's see that an organization will have a standalone project. It has a new project, and it has the operations, running operations. Let's understand what these things are. A standalone project is something which is not linked to any program, right? So we will understand what a program is in just a bit, but just keep this definition in the back of your mind. So a standalone project is not linked to any program. It is such a project. It is managed independently within a portfolio. A new project is always associated with some program. Let it be a single project, but it will have an association with some sort of program. And the operations, as you can see, they are the bread and butter of the company. They are the regular operations of the organization. Now, if 2 or more projects are being handled by the organization for the ease of operations, they are usually clubbed together. So why does this clubbing happen? That's because although there are 2 different projects, they are usually executed by more or less the same set of resources. So imagine we are working in an organization and there are so many projects that are handled by it. So the people don't quite often change because there are 2 projects. 2 projects don't have 2 different set of people. So in very huge organizations, that is possible. But usually, I'm talking generally, it is the same set of people. When we say man, machine, method, everything is going to be common for 2 different projects. So in this case, what project needs to be given importance? Will it be project A or project B? It will be decided by the program manager. So there will be a project manager. There will be a project manager here. There will be 2 project managers who will be reporting to a program manager who decides which resources are to be used in which project and at what time. So that is why program management is very important. Usually the organization doesn't just handle one project, right? So it keeps on growing. There are multiple projects which can be happening for multiple customers. So a program management plays a major role in any organization. They're usually grouped together, right? So these are called programs. So as you can see, a portfolio is something that is bigger than the program. It can have multiple programs within itself, right? You can see that there is a program and a standalone project. It is not always the case. Portfolio can have 2 programs, or a portfolio can have just 2 standalone projects. You can ask me whether the portfolio has just 2 projects. It can have, and it will be called a program again. I hope it's clear. So when there are two new projects handled as a set, it is called a program. When two different programs are clubbed together, that is called a portfolio. And it need not necessarily be just two different programs. The standalone project, which is not involved with any program, because let's take an example. As a customer has specifically asked for a special project, let's say a government approach your organization saying that this has to be handled separately, separate resources have to be allocated to it, separate operations have to be done, and this has to be done in secrecy. So such projects are usually taken not in any program, but they are handled usually independently. But it can be part of a portfolio. So a portfolio management will have a program and a standalone project and also a second program. So here you can see that there is another portfolio like this. So if we all observe, so again, as I told, these are the examples: portfolio with just two standalone projects, a portfolio with a program, and again a standalone project. So this is how an organization looks like, right? It has three different set of portfolios, which has different programs within itself, and as you can see, the operations here is independent of any project or standalone project or a program or a portfolio. So in fact, these activities of these operations are managed by operations management. We will learn about that operations management in just a bit. So what happens in the operations management? In operations management, some sort of inputs are converted to outputs with the help of a well established process. So, and the management is done to ensure the smoothness of this project. So as you can see, these are usually the bread and butter of the organization. Usually the processes are very well established, right? So there is nothing new getting added here. And on the contrary, if there is a change that is going to happen, it is usually opposed by the running operations. Like all the organizations that you're all working on, the independent organizations where you are, wherever you are working, if you can relate to me, the production line usually have some of the operations going on. If you go and try to ask to change something, there will be an opposition immediately, right? So because the processes are all set here, and then it is very difficult to change the processes, and it will directly affect the outputs of the current running operations. So for this reason, usually there is a lot of back pressure whenever we want to change something. So I think in this difficult situation comes the next important management, that is called the operations and project management. So why is operations plus project management important? So while the operations are running and the new project that we have decided to handle starts using the resources that are allocated for this regular operations. So as I told you, the organization is still the same, the organization, and whatever machinery that is available, it is majorly being used by the operations, right? So it can also be used by the project because we are all working for the same organization ultimately. The operation stakeholders do not own this machinery, right? So everybody understands this, but there will be a lot of disturbance, right? Whenever a new project is handled, there will be disturbances in the current or ongoing operations. So as you can see in this illustration, there are different ways which can become an impediment for the ongoing operation process, right? So the stress is on the word impediment. Impediment is something which is obstructing the flow. So to manage both the new project and the operations smoothly, this operations and project management helps a lot. You can see the project can disturb operations in these different ways to use the shared resources. So let's say you want to test a prototype, right? So prototype testing. So there the testing stakeholders, that the colleagues who work on these testing machines, they have to give their time other than what they already have been allocated for operations, right? So such disturbances keep on happening. So usually at the phase gate closures where you want to prove your product, these kind of disturbances are happening a lot. So at these stages, and these are the things that are being affected. So that's all about operations and project management.